For a while, people have struggled to put into words why they like certain platformers. Is it because some are linear, some are sandboxy? Is it the moveset? It could be any one of these things, but usually when they're talking about those complex movesets and broad, open level design, they are talking about the expressiveness of the platformer. And this is a subgenre coined by Fabraz, the developers of Demon Turf, the expressive platformer. Instead of giving you an outright definition, let's look at a bunch of games and see which ones are expressive and which ones are not. So let's begin at the beginning of the scale with Crash Bandicoot. Crash is very much a 2D side-scroller kind of flipped to the back to become a 3D platformer. You move forward, you jump, you spin, and that's about it. Later games do expand on the moveset with a double jump or a slam or a slide, but these aren't really used for expressiveness. These are core utilities of the intended design to play the game. You can definitely speedrun Crash and play it faster than other players, but the game is not expressive. So let's keep moving on in the scale and focus on Astrobot. So Astro can jump, he can punch, and he can hover. But you can also use that punch in the air to hang in the air for a little bit longer and get slightly more height, and using that in tandem with the hover can make for some slightly expressive platforming. It's pretty minor, and Astro's moveset is rather basic overall, but it does allow you to move through the game in a slightly different way. So there is a very small skill ceiling. Most players will play the intentional way, whereas the more advanced players will try and break the platforming by using these moves in tandem. But let's keep moving on. Sackboy, A Big Adventure. Now this is quite a slow platformer, but it does give you a bunch of moves to string together to be quite expressive. Sackboy can roll around to travel a bit faster, which does look a little bit silly, and you can jump out of that roll and flutter jump and nosedive and spin. So there's a lot of potential to stay in the air and keep that distance flowing. Far more than both Crash and Astro, despite being slower than both of them in its core. And then moving on to Sonic Adventure, a game that's rather static in most of its moveset until you press this button right here as Sonic. The spin dash button is incredibly expressive, making Sonic much faster, especially when using both X and Y at the same time. But what really makes it expressive is when using it in tandem with a jump. So getting that big burst of momentum from the spin dash and then using it immediately while jumping. And levels are made to take advantage of this. When doing this, climbing all the way to the top even gives you a life, so the game is somewhat aware that this mechanic exists and that you can exploit it. This is something that a lot of modern games do too, like Astro and Mario Odyssey, just giving you a slight reward for going somewhere that you're probably not really meant to go. So most people will play Sonic Adventure like this, like a regular person, but you've got the ability to be really expressive with Sonic's moves. And then we have Mario Galaxy. This is by no means the most expressive Mario platformer. In fact, if we were to scale them, Galaxy would be rather low on the expressive level. Even looking back at Astrobot, that game has the Mario Galaxy spin to stay in the air for a little bit longer, and that's where a lot of the expressiveness lies in Mario Galaxy. Yeah, you've got the backflip and the triple jump and the long jump, but when using those in tandem with the spin, you can make some really interesting results. And in Mario Galaxy, the mechanic of gravity is also expressive. You can do one jump, two jumps, a triple jump, a spin, and then gravity will do its thing as well. The player is forging their own path using expressive mechanics. This is an expressive platformer. It's still rather low on the general scale. Not every level is built to be expressive, but you have the ability to in a big chunk of the game. So many obstacles can be done in another way. That's what being expressive means, forging your own path, ignoring the critical path, but using the abilities you have to do what you like in your way. And so now we kinda know what expressive platformer means, let's jump off the deep end. This is Penny's Big Breakaway, a brilliant game that launched earlier this year that I really advise you try. Penny's got a bunch of ways to play, and if you play it in its most basic way, I think you're kinda missing out on the joy of the game. It's rather slow this way, isn't it? But if you were to jump and then use your yo-yo to pull yourself forward and then ride your yo-yo and then use the momentum of the slope to get more speed with the yo-yo and then go in the air and then use it to swing around and then pull yourself along again and then ride it again, you can see where this is going. Moving around in Penny is incredibly expressive, and while level design is built to be rather approachable for every player, it's also built to be a daring sandbox. Can you make this jump? The game certainly wants you to, and yes, you absolutely can. Penny is such a fun game when you understand all these mechanics and they flow into each other from muscle memory alone. This is a very cool, expressive platformer. And moving further along the scale is Super Mario Odyssey. So like most 3D Marios, we've got the triple jump, we've got the backflip, we've got the long jump, all the basics are here. But we've also got the hat throw. Using this, we can do a triple jump, throw our hat, dive onto the hat, jump off the hat, go onto a wall, jump off the wall, do a dive onto the cliff, and climb up that way. The game is pretty much designed to never expect the player to jump off their hat or even do a dive, but the deeper mechanics are there for players to fully express themselves and climb mountains or cliffs in any way they want. This is probably most evident in New Donk City. Yes, there are these electric wires that allow you to scale all these buildings, but you're probably going to be doing a lot of wall jumps and triple jumps and dives just to get around however you want to get around. And then there's also moves like the roll, but if you ground pound into the roll, you get a sudden burst of momentum, and then momentum carries into your jumps as well. It's just a continuous flow of expressiveness in the level design, in the moveset, and combining those tools together. Mario Odyssey is the quintessential expressive platformer. And what's really interesting is in Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, they retroactively added the dive into that moveset. And 3D World is one of the least expressive 3D Marios. There's no triple jump, and the backflip and long jump are rather nerfed. But that dive allows you to move around in very different ways compared to the vanilla 3D World. Most players will never use it, but it can create some really interesting results and give 3D World some expression. And then finally we have Demon Turf, the game that coined this genre. Demon Turf's got a lot of mechanics from 3D Mario. We've got the triple jump, we've got the backflip. But what's really interesting here is a lot of moves are gelled into each other in a way that Mario doesn't really do. So the long jump, for instance, can be done from within the jump. Let's take a look at a Demon Turf tower speedrun for a moment and just see how many moves are stringed together in a single segment. The game isn't just an endless pool of platforming moves, it's still very approachable, but allows you to string them together to make these really unique styles of moving. Most people that play Demon Turf probably aren't going to scale towers or areas in the same way as someone else. It encourages you to break the level design and play in your own way with moves beyond the usual skill ceiling. And that is an expressive platformer. So to reiterate, we've got games like Crash Bandicoot, where the base moveset is the moveset for everyone. Level design is likewise not very expressive. Games like Astrobot are a bit further ahead in the expressive level, but not by very much. Then we've got very expressive platformers like Penny's Big Breakaway, Mario Odyssey, and Demon Turf. This is a subgenre of platformer. It's not just linear and sandbox. Penny's Big Breakaway is a linear game, but it's far more expressive than sandbox games like Mario Sunshine. So the objective doesn't really matter, it's the flexibility of the moveset and how it allows you to make your own platforming within the constraints of what's already there. That is an expressive platformer.